Oh, wrong chat. Sorry. Oops. There we go. I'm sure we're live. Can I? Sorry, just a second. This was unexpected timing for Monster Cat to crash for Nestor. What's up, everybody? Nice timing for the music to just die on us, right?
Cute.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, you know how it is. You know how it is. So, Mark, how are you doing, my good friend? How are you doing?
What's going on, man? Everything good, Sean. I mean, just living it day by day, hour by hour, minute by the minute. Actually, work actually lasted a little bit longer than what I expected today. I was actually kind of looking forward to having a shorter day today, but unfortunately, when you think positive things like that, negative things seem to follow afterwards. So yeah, that's my Wednesday today.
You know, I am trying to remain positive. I have one more Friday left of work in my year. So if I can make it through this Friday, I have no more Fridays left to work this year.
Awesome.
Uh, next week being Thanksgiving, of course, get that holiday off. Then 2 or 3 weeks of December, and then I think it's 3 weeks of December's, and then Christmas break, and then New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. So work is shaping up in that regard to be kind of nice to close out the year. I still got a couple projects I'm trying to finish out by the end of the year, but there's still a few days left in the year for me to work on those. But yeah, man, everything on this side is I can't complain right now, which I think is usually about as good as I can hope for in general terms. Being able to being able to keep doing what I do.
Oh, for sure, man. I mean, like I said, after obviously the Thanksgiving break, I'll have a week off that first week of December, and then hopefully I can do something positive or productive during that week off. But regardless of the fact, just happy to have some time off, coming up, and then in my industry, obviously the holiday season is the busiest time. We'll see what happens with the shutdown, if it does shut down, or what the plan is going forward. But as far as the alcohol being there, it'll be there. Alcohol stays a flowing.
My speaking of familial events for Thanksgiving and Christmas and holidays in general, I am getting together with my parents and my little sister, and that is the extent of our Thanksgiving
It's awesome.
gathering this year. I don't know what we're doing for Christmas. I haven't really discussed that yet. Last Christmas was pretty chill for us, so I
Yeah.
don't know if there's gonna be much difference from that really for us, but it is definitely an interesting time to be dealing with COVID stuff and trying to manage that while simultaneously managing life and holidays and stuff like that.
I think I saw somewhere, and this might be fake news. I don't know, but I saw somewhere that today's COVID 19's birthday. So happy birthday, COVID 19.
I mean it that of course depends on depends on things like when is the actual date that it is technically considered to have been born, if you will. And I think that's tough for them to track down right now because there's a lot of misinformation and information out there, and it's hard to distinguish between the two. I wish I had some sort of magic 8 ball or something to be able to kind of filter through it myself and figure it out. But alas, I do not have such things. They do not equip us they do not equip us with such things. I can talk. Gosh.
No,
Um,
nor do I, man. But anyways, let's get to some positive news, man. We have a new
I was
crest.
hold on. I had a joke tied to that
Oh,
whole they do not
I'm
equip
sorry.
us. I
Go
was
ahead.
going to say the front office doesn't equip us with these things. We are
Oh,
apparently, according to what I've been told, we're front office shills. So I thought it was
yeah.
important that I throw that out there that we're not equipped by them.
But
Of course.
speaking of the
Go
front
ahead.
office, real quick. I mean, I guess they've forgotten about us because I've been working from home. I mean, if I'm quote unquote front office material for the Dynamo, I've been working from home. I haven't got the call back to go back.
Funny. Yeah, Serge does back up your thing. He said, yeah, he saw today. Last year was the first reported case of COVID. So it is technically the 1 year anniversary of reported cases of COVID. So definitely, something. And of course, as always, guys, if you're watching, tuning in, if you're a follower, even if you're not, try to stay safe. Do what you can to stay safe. This stuff obviously is no joke. Continue to be no joke. And masks up everybody as much as you can. But there was a tiny bit of news this week that leaked out. Leaked out is kind of a joke. That came out as a result of a massive push and for an announcement. Stu Holden came back into town to record some video for the Dynamo and ultimately the Dash in relation to the rebrand release, if you will, the reveal they called it. If you don't know, they also have a website. You can check out a lot of the reveal stuff on holditdownfc.com. The Dynamo website is now also domained over to HoustonDynamoFC.com. So the first and foremost thing to know is they have added FC into the name and branding for the Dynamo, which anybody who's kind of kept up with the Dynamo over the last month or two is already well aware of that and has been well aware of that. We've seen the leaks of or had seen the leaks prior to this of the Dynamo crest. What's important is not only those leaks of the Dynamo crest, but there were also, and unbeknownst to many people, and it wasn't even called out really, there were leaks of the Dash crest as well. And yes, there are two different crests, but the idea is that both are being rebranded at the same time and in similar fashions. Not exactly the same, but definitely trying to represent this idea of one club. We are one organization. We are one club, and we are united in our efforts to go after these championships and to improve. But speaking on the crests, Nest, if you've tossed them up there, that's great. If not, if you could do that now, that would be wonderful. Nestor is going to pop the crest up on the screen. I don't have the video playing, so I can't see it, but cool, awesome. So the first thing you're going to notice, of course, about the crest is the hexagon shapes. Both of them are hexagon, six-sided, and so the things that the Dynamo / Dash media marketing people said about it is, it's based on the team being founded in 06. Okay, I can buy that a little bit. Houston's 6 wards. Okay, I can buy that a little bit. And then there's this, and it's quoted from the marketing director or marketing officer, chief marketing officer, Katie Scallon. It is the strongest naturally occurring shape. And I want to go on record and say that is unequivocally false information. Naturally, huh?
Fake news, you mean?
I wasn't gonna go that far. I kind of kept that part out, but it is unequivocally false information. I know that sounds cool in theory, but the strongest naturally occurring shape is actually a triangle. With that said, they alluded to, and Katie, this is a quote from Katie Scallon, and this quote comes from Meg Linehan's article on from The Athletic. When you put them next to each other, two hexagons next to each other, their strength multiplies based on the pressure and support they get from their neighbors. And that is true. That part of it is true. However, that incurs that you're talking about multiple versions of that shape together. When it's a singular shape, she didn't say naturally occurring shapes or group of shapes, but naturally occurring shape. The triangle is singular, is the strongest naturally occurring shape. With that being said, the reason why I like how they're still doing it with the hexagon, most people don't know this, and I've done a ton of research about this, so hang in with me for just a second. But bees, they're going to point to bees and this whole honeycomb aspect, and because hexagon, honeycomb, it makes sense. Bees, when they create their tubes that they're going to fill, they create them. The wax that they use is actually created in a tube. It's not created in a hexagon shape by naturally. They don't do that. And then what happens is, as the hive heats up due to activity from bees, from the bees inside, as the hive heats up, the wax begins to melt and fill in the spaces between the tubes, which is what actually turns that and creates that actual honeycomb or hexagonal kind of connected shape thing that they have going on. And yes, it is a strong, naturally occurring shape. Don't get me wrong, but it is not the strongest singular naturally occurring shape. It is the strongest naturally occurring shape or group of shapes that is out there. So thoughts
National
on the
Geographic.
hexagon shape before we dive into anything further than just the hexagon shape. Thoughts on the hexagon shape?
Well, first and foremost, National Geographic to the rescue. That's
That wasn't from National
secondly,
Geographic. If anybody wants the link to the article, I'll find it for you. It was actually really interesting to
I'm
read
sure,
up on it. I
I'm
was
sure,
kind of curious.
sure, man. It's all good. I mean, no, look, man, it's awesome in theory, Yeah, obviously I can understand where they got the six from, the six-sided shape. Obviously, they kind of has gone and connecting it with the fact that 2006 was the first year the Dynamo was founded, and obviously the six wars in Houston, and then you said it, so it's understandable. I mean, and it actually looks a pretty cool on some merch that I've seen online already. Obviously like a couple of hats and all that good stuff. So it's kind of a strong structure for a badge, basically for a crest. So I mean, it looks good. But aside from that, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I said the funny thing was the whole no scars bandanas up or whatever type of deal thing that they were trying to throw out there. So well, we'll see how far that goes.
We'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that in a minute. So that's the hexagon shape, and again, both the Dynamo and Dash crest both use the hexagon shape. They kind of wanted to keep that part, the same. The next thing is the HD, the letters H and the letter D, or the letter H and the letter D. It's important to know that they're interconnected or interwoven together. You can see it on the screen there. The kind of interconnectedness there of the two letters is supposed to represent the connectedness of the city with the connected to the club itself. And then they're trying to push the narrative that the negative space between the lines of the letters represents the bayous of Houston. Okay, cool. I'll give you that. I don't think that was intentional. I think there are times when, from a public relations standpoint, you try to find ways to connect something that you create with the city or the club that you're trying to represent or whatever you're trying to represent. Logos do that all the time. But thoughts on the HD and this idea of interconnectedness with the city and the club and the negative spaces representing the bayous?
So I think like obviously the way the H and D are put together, it looks obviously like for those who have seen like close up threads, how they thread up when you're I guess making a quilt or some kind of cloth material, whatever. Or for those knitting experts out there in our Twitch chat. But yeah, man, yeah, I think it's a kind of a stretch with the whole Bayou thing, but hey, if it works, it works, and if people buy it, great, I guess. Um,
You're absolutely 100% spot on with that. So
you
then,
know, it
the next thing on the Dynamo crest specifically is the lightning bolt. The Some might refer to it as the surge
urge.
bolt at this point. Yeah. The lightning bolt represents the energy capital of the world. The Dynamo media team have used the lightning bolt for consistently enough since probably 2013 or 14. They've used it for their media team logo specifically. They've used it. It's been in the backgrounds and various things. So it's been there. It's been a part of what we've done. I think a lot of people will see it and they'll go, "Oh, there's confirmation that the Surge is part of the front office, their front office shills." But again, if you consider us to be front office shills and we say they're not front office shills, then one of the two has to be right, right? That's how that works. So thoughts on the lightning bolt and its correlation to the Surge?
Obviously, Sergio had a part to do with this creation. Uh, no, man. I mean, obviously coincidences happen, and things of that nature, and whether or not they had any part to do with it, I'm gonna be lipped on it. I don't know. Whatever. I'm gonna act like I don't know. I'm gonna play to the conspiracy theorists out there. So, you know, and just say, it just so happened to pop in there.
Sometimes ignorance is bliss. That's the way I'm gonna phrase that. I again, it's one of those things that it is coincidence, I assure you, but it is humorous that the lightning bolt has kind of become that signifying kind of icon, if you will, iconography to represent not just the energy capital, but also the surge. And I think we're going to see it become more of a symbol of what what the Dynamo are trying to push towards. They're trying to push away from this idea of this burst or whatever, and they're trying to incorporate the idea of energy in general and that kind of thing. Also important, the triangles that stick out from the sides of the H. Those are said to represent the Pennzoil Place building downtown, which is an iconic part of the Houston skyline. The angles on that building are sharp and crazy. And so I can definitely understand that. And to be fair, I don't think those triangles would necessarily be there. That is a font that I've seen in other instances, but they never really have, not Houston specific, but they've never called out the triangles as anything important. So I do like that they actually called that out as something specific. And then finally, as part of the Dynamo crest specifically, there's the 2 stars at the top. They called it out as as being in championship silver, and that representing not just the 2 championships, but the desire and the strive and the goal and objective of obtaining more championships. And putting it in silver is the idea that that's the color of championship, and that is true. It is actually in every league that I can think of.
Oh, can I tell you where I think I've seen this H before?
Sure. Tell me where you think you've seen this H before.
Well, we us as the Dynamo, we have a strong, rich history of Honduran players. So- and H looks kind of familiar to the H on the Honduran crest for the national team. So, just a little bit, of another coincidence there.
Sergio is probably sitting here right now going, "What the heck, guys? What the heck?" He even said in chat, "Why y'all throwing false narratives out there?" No, he knows we
Oh,
love to
by
dig
the
at it
way,
because we find it hilarious. By the way,
by the way, if you're on chat, I just created a new chant for the supporter group. So if that does happen in BVVA or PNC, whatever they're gonna call it
so
next season.
so my question is, with this chant here, this is important, Mark. I need to know because there's a bunch of different ways to do this. Is this 2 letters followed by a clap, or is this 2 letters followed by clap, clap, clap?
HD FC HD FC.
Okay, so it's 2 claps after each letter. All right, cool, cool, cool. Because I mean,
Oh, 'cause,
Minnesota, not Minnesota, LAFC, they do it. No, not LA, Seattle. They do, they have a big clap, like a single clap that they do. So that's why I was asking. It's important to know the difference there because there's different ways to go about it.
oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, obviously, depending on the syllables of the words involved or whatever, but in this case, it just being letters, it's a lot easier to make it 2 claps and keep going.
Sir just says no. It's HDFC in the style of YMCA, bringing it back to the HDFC.
Well, well,
HDFC. Come on, everybody. You can join me now. Anyway, so enough on the Dynamo crest. Let's talk. Because I'm gonna give you a chance, Mark, to give a little bit more input on the general crest and overall. The dash crest, of course, again, it has the hexagon shape, has the singular H, which they said represents H town. I find it funny they didn't use the HD for this as well. I would have thought that would have been okay. Um, uh,
all
Oh,
right.
sorry. Yeah, sorry. I was looking at something that popped up on my screen there. Um, they use the Space City Blue in the Dash crest. They do not anywhere use Space City Blue in the Dynamo crest. And in fact, they go to the extent of adding Championship Silver to the Dynamo crest, removing any reference to the Space City Blue that they used to have. I think that's a conscientious decision. I think they're trying to move away from that for the Dynamo specifically to let the Dash kind of have that as their unique color, which I think is totally fine. And then finally for the dash crest, there's the star, or instead of the energy or the lightning bolt, it's a star. It's also known as a quasar. It's a 4-pointed star, and that is said to be homage to NASA specifically. I could buy off on that being homage to NASA. So thoughts on the dash crest, just generally speaking.
As far as them keeping the sky blue or the whatever oily blue or whatever kind of blue they want to call it, I find it to be okay with them. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot lighter shade of blue. You know, I wasn't really a big fan of the blue. You know, being around for the Dynamo. I mean, whatever. I'm happy that they kept the origin black over there on this side. But as far as the dash crest, I was, you know, for as simple as it is, I mean, it's a pretty nice looking, you know, logo. So
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that like the Dash crest more than the Dynamo crest because it has the Space City blue and because it's just the H. And I kind of laugh at that because there's also a lot of people out there, a good contingency of people out there that don't like the Houston crest or the Dynamo crest because it's too simple. But yet, if you offer an H, crest with just an H in there, they're all over it. So I don't really get the difference there. Why is the H okay, but the HD isn't? And they'll reference it's too much like a baseball logo. Okay, I get that because this the San Francisco Giants in baseball have that kind of look to them. I get that. I understand that. But also if you look at the New York Mets, if you look at their older classic kind of logos, those are represented in the NYCFC logo. Most people don't pay attention to that, but that's the truth. And it's important to remember that yes, it is a unintended partner with baseball just because it looks like a baseball logo to some people, but it's this is not just about creating a crest for a soccer team. It's about creating two crests for a club in an organization. It's about creating a brand and identity. And so, I mentioned the hexagon shape and how I have a feeling this is going to kind of become a bigger thing, as we see more marketing materials put out there, more graphics put out there. I mean, you saw it all over holditdownfc.com, all over the different releases and announcements. I mean, that honeycomb kind of graphic look has been everywhere and is being pushed. And what I want people to think about is what that's going to look like on a billboard. Seeing that honeycomb look on a billboard when you're driving down the freeway and then seeing Memo's face or Quintero's face or whomever else, seeing those, seeing that kind of, up on a billboard, that honeycomb look is going to be eye catching. It's going to catch the eye. It's going to be noticeable. It's not something you're just going to drive by and kind of shrug at because it doesn't really do anything. It's going to have, it's going to have staying power. It's going to have something that's going to trigger to remind you about this. So just be on the lookout. I guarantee there's going to be more marketing materials and more billboard stuff going up in the, probably in the early days of January, February, as they're getting ready to push for more season ticket holders for next year. We're going to see a lot of honeycomb graphics. And shout out to SGL for doing honeycombs prior to and before the Dynamo ever did. Shout out to you guys for that. It was done first. They can lay claim to it. But then again, flipping the narrative there, kind of, I guess, reconfirms that they are indeed FO shills, right? Because they used the honeycomb graphics first, and then once everybody bought into that, then hey, the Dynamo are pushing that out as their thing, right? So clearly they're FO shills. Clearly,
sometimes great minds think alike, man. But,
I mean,
no, man,
I can. I was just gonna say this real quick to add to that joke about the FO Shills thing. I can assure you that Sergio is still waiting for his first check from the Dynamo front office in relation to all the graphics work that he's done, apparently for them. So trust me, he'll let us know when he gets that first check in. I'm sure he's waiting for that big royalty check.
I mean, speaking of Sergio, since he's so connected to the front office, obviously being a part of it, I mean, I wanted one of those folded down boxes filled with merch. I mean, how come we didn't get any? But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
I haven't checked my mail today. No, I'm kidding. You're a media guy now, so you get the right to kind of expect some things, right? So, I do find it. I do think it's cool that they're doing that kind of distribution of merch out to, influencers, rappers, artists, actual artists in the city. TV personalities. They sent something to Lena Hidalgo. They sent something to Sylvester Turner, mayor. They've sent a bunch of different stuff out. I saw it with the NWSL commissioner tweeted a picture of her wearing the Dash hat and a bandana. Again, we'll get to the bandana versus scarf discussion soon. I know you're just aching for that discussion, and I know our listeners, watchers are aching to talk about that too, because boy, that's something to talk about. But before, go ahead. You had something you wanted to say real quick. Go ahead.
Yeah. Before we move on, like you were talking about the simplicity, obviously with just the color scheme, whatever, and the Dynamo having the Sky City blue off or whatever. I mean, obviously, when you have a simple design like that with just two main colors or two primary colors, advertising out, it'll be a lot easier for them. I mean, because I guess it can make it pop. When you keep it simple, things pop sometimes. Especially if you put it with a good color scheme or good background as far as everything goes. And then obviously that blue on the dash is going to make it pop as well for them. And I think that's what is attracting a lot more people or a lot more fans to that logo as opposed to the Dynamo logo, because that blue is just it pops really. And prior to that, obviously the Sky City blue and the Dynamo crest was kind of just behind the scenes. We knew it was there, obviously, because we see it, but that blue now on that dash logo is like prominent. So it's really looking, it's really out there popping.
Yeah, so it does that Space City Sky Blue, whatever you want to call it, Oiler Love You Blue, whatever, it's still blue. It really is visible even at a distance. And actually, the hat that Lena is wearing in the picture that she tweeted out earlier actually has the sky blue, and instead of being and it's got white stripes instead of being black stripes on an orange background, which is interesting. But it's iconography at its best, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is these are things that you can put in multiple styles and they work. And I don't just mean on merch. I mean in marketing materials. I mean in graphics and things like that. There's 100,000 ways when you keep it simple for the crest to leverage the iconography of simple things like the H and the D or just the H. And I think we're going to see that really pushed over this next year and a half, 2 years, as they really try to push this into the kind of the forefront of Houston sports fans' minds, and your casual observers, if you will.
Sure, for sure.
So moving on from that, and this is going to be a lot, so I'm going to read these quotes off one by one. But I referenced Meg Linehan's article in the Athletic, where she had a bunch of quotes, and she kind of broke it down in terms of the rebrand based on more of the dash focused. But there were some Dynamo things in there, so I wanted to read these because I think all of them are very important, and they highlight something that I hope and I believe is the case. And now I just need to see it kind of come through in this offseason. But so first thing she says, this is the first quote is from Christy Mewis of The Dash. The quote goes, "It's perfect timing for a rebrand. I think we have reinvented ourselves and we're going in the right direction. I think Houston as a community will follow, and I'm really excited to see what happens in 2021. A lot of people have said, go ahead.
I think that speaks true on the dash front. Obviously this being their first, this past season being their first, successful season, and obviously winning that Challenge Cup tournament. So I think it stands a lot truer for the dash than it does the Dynamo. Obviously, I think her being a dash player. Obviously, I think it's good for her. I mean, it's good for her to mention that, because I think it is a beginning of a new era for the dash, and then obviously locking up the players that they have and extending their coach. I think they are looking to have a really successful season next season.
I think they are too, and she does actually. There's more quotes tied to that, but you brought up how the timing is better for the dash than the Dynamo, and I want to refute that for a second. And I'm actually going to use a quote directly from the article. And yes, this is from the Dynamo chief marketing officer, so take it with a grain of salt. But quote number 6, it's at the very end of the article. Katie says, "Come talk to me in a year or two, and I think people are going to be able to look at this and say, they were having some problems over there. There was a disconnect between the men's and women's team. teams, look at how they've been able to bring them together. I think that's what I'm most excited about. And then I'm going to read quote number 2. This is actually quote number 5. It's right before that. Same article, same person. This is step 1 of the process, and this is more than just a logo. This is a bigger story in how we're going to live and breathe as an organization, as a club, on the field, off the field, the front office, and tech operations. There's a lot of pieces, and all of them have to come together, and it doesn't happen overnight. So
So,
why is? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
so yeah, so basically just to piggyback off that quote that you just read, I mean, I do tend to agree. Obviously, I think there was a lot of disconnect between the Dash and the Dynamo, regardless of whoever was in charge of it, or however the planning or marketing was done prior to this season. And I'm glad to see them bringing it together. I mean, you see all these women clubs being created from these big clubs around the world, and they're all tied together. When you see kit releases and new jersey releases and promotional whatever with pictures of players, you see both the men and the women's team players on those campaigns, and endorsements and stuff like that, and promotional events or whatever the case may be. And I think the fact that they're marketing things together, like, I mean, I know last season we saw a lot of stuff with Zach Valentine and Rachel Daly being done together and things of that nature, and that's great to see, because I mean it should be. you know I, I take it one step forward further, and I thought, in my opinion, to be honest, I kind, and I think I mentioned this to you, Sean, a couple of weeks ago, if not last week, that I wouldn't have minded if they just would have put it on all under one entity, and just would have been just Houston Dynamo Football Club, and had been both men and women being named
So
Dynamo.
yeah,
So, but
so I agree with you, and I think honestly, if the Dynamo, both from an ownership perspective and a front office perspective, were able to do it legally, they would have. The thing most people tend to forget is here in the U.S., we are very different than everywhere else in the world, especially Europe, and you're referencing
rights and
Mexico as
all,
much as
yeah.
anything else. But MLS and NWSL, they both have their own processes for handling club name rights and things like that. And if you think about it, there's not a single NWSL club, including the newest one that's coming into the fold in 2022, which will be Racing Louisville. No, I guess 2020 this year,
Louisville
2021.
City?
Louisville,
Oh, Louisville. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Louisville, Louisville City. Yeah, it's either no Racing Louisville. If you
Racing
look,
Louisville.
even Louisville, who they're the same club, just like the Dynamo and Dash, they're the same club, but they have to name themselves differently, and it's for trademark rights, it's for league purposes, it's also because for merch purposes. Because again, you have two different companies, Adidas and Nike, that handle the merch for for each league respectively, and so you can't use the same name, because then there would be real issues. And so that's the reason why, even though, trust me, they want to just go by HDFC for all of it, and by that I mean Houston Dynamo FC, they actually can't. So just keep that in mind when people are like, well, why couldn't we? If we were going to go for this whole one club thing, why didn't we just go Houston Dynamo FC for everything? That's why they actually
You
can't.
know, it's funny how a lot of things. I mean, I'm gonna get a little bit off topic here, just because of the
Oh,
fact
you're
that
good.
we brought that up. How a lot of things, I guess, legal wise, hold us back as a soccer nation, as opposed to other countries around the world where they're a lot further advanced, because they're able to have younger players on the pitch. They're able to sign younger players at a younger age. At younger players, they're able to make better decisions. And then obviously the whole thing with the whole NWSL and MLS trademark rights and all that good stuff. Because obviously, selfishly, I wanted some Nike Dynamo merch. I'm Team Nike all the way. So even though I am rocking an Adidas hat today.
That's the crazy thing, though. I mean, it's again, a lot of this comes from being, like I said, being U.S. based. It is a different environment to have to deal from a trademark perspective, and those kinds of things. But I do think that we'll continue to see this kind of unified front. Katie Scallon brings it up in the article. Back in 2019 in October, so Katie was hired as chief marketing officer in July 2019. Then in October of 2019, the Dash played a friendly in Monterrey, Mexico, which I remember that, and it was against Tigres Femenil. And even though the Dash lost the game, the personnel on the trip came away with plenty of notes on how Tigres advertised the men's and women's first team as equals on billboards and around the stadium. Does that not sound familiar to you whatsoever? It is clear that the Dynamo Dash marketing and operations brought back an understanding of how they needed to improve marketing for both the Dynamo and the Dash and unifying that marketing. You even look on the Hold It Down FC site, and it is Rachel Daly on one side, and it is Darwin Quintero on the other side. If you look at every video that they released, there was a Dash player and a Dynamo player interviewed. It is going to be a continued effort to keep both teams at the front of everyone's mind so that it's not going to fade away, because they want to push this idea that we are truly one club and we are serving one unified focus, which is to win as many championships together as possible. And that go ahead.
You know what's funny about this promotional thing? It seems like the Dash are carrying the Dynamo right now because obviously this recent Dash team, they have so many fun players to follow and with such great personalities from my standpoint, from my viewpoint and all that stuff. And obviously with the recent success that they've been having, it's a great team to follow. I'm not gonna lie, like I said, when I first started here with Generation Orange, I wasn't really too familiar with the Dash itself. I started following them like heavily more this season, obviously, but obviously the season wasn't a normal season. But for what it was, I enjoyed the games that I watched. Obviously I enjoyed watching the championship game where they won, where they beat I forgot who they beat in the final of this Challenge Cup. But yeah, it was a great view of soccer, and it was good to see the ladies out there. And then obviously that
was Sky Blue FC, because that's where against Kaleo High went to, or Kaleo Watt. Yeah.
And it was great to see the support that they got. Obviously in that drive-through parade thing that they had. Because they said it was massive line. I think you said you were out there, right, Sean, with Sergio, and it was great to see. And it's kind of good because as much negativity that we see about the Dynamo and what's going on over there right now, the fact that they're kind of pushing the Dash to stand right alongside them is kind of one of those things where like, well, yeah, I'm upset with the Dynamo, but but yeah, I love y'all Dash, so.
Yeah, and then there was the whole Kiss My Dash thing that came out that was pushed by Keeper Notes, which I think is great. There were and then the circle will never fucking break. I'm gonna just say it. Or the circle never effing broke. I mean, there are so many. That's the thing, right? The Dash are so marketable because they were good. And a lot of people are going to say that. I already mentioned why I think it was important for them to do this rebrand now. But I think another thing to keep in mind is just because the Dynamo weren't successful this season doesn't mean that they shouldn't do a rebrand. That rebrand, and they've had this plan for more than 2 years. It says 2 years in the article, but I can promise you this has been going on for more than 2 years. They've been discussing it longer than 2 years. Here's the thing though. Because they had it planned for so long and they've kind of had this date circled and targeted, if it didn't matter if the Dynamo were going to have a bad season or not. If the Dynamo had a great season, this discussion and these discussions don't matter. Everybody's hyped up. Everybody's enjoying. Everybody looks at the new crest and they kind of go, okay, maybe it's not exactly my thing, the ones that don't like it, but they're like, you know what? It doesn't matter. The Dynamo are being, they're succeeding at what they're doing. Because the Dynamo aren't succeeding, there's this kind of alternative conspiracy theory that money that would have been spent on players was being spent on this rebrand, and that's not true at all. They weren't diverting funds from one part of the organization to the other part of the organization. That's not how they operate those budgets, trust me. But it was done because this is the 15th anniversary of the first season that the Dynamo played, 2005 technically, which was when they were revealed as the Houston Dynamo, as the birthday anniversary, if you will. So being the 15th anniversary, they wanted to do something to show that they were, they're moving and preparing to move in a different direction organizationally. And this is really the big way to do that. You do that with a rebrand. And like Katie said in that quote that I've already shared, that this is just a step in the process. It's not, it's step one. I don't even think this is step one for them. I think they've already been working on this, but this is a step in the process. This is more than just the logos. It's more than just the crest. It's more than just the honeycomb marketing materials. It's a bigger story. It's how they're going to live and breathe as an organization, being a single club on the field, off the field, the front office, and technical operations. There's all these different pieces that have to come together, and every one of them together have to work together and come together. And this is not something that just happens overnight. And that's, I think, hugely important. This rebrand is not just going to be something that they do this year and then, if things go well, it's great. If things go bad, then we look to rebrand like Chicago Fire are going to do, where they're already looking at rebranding 1 year in. They're looking at doing a rework of their crest because everybody hates their crest because it's really, honestly, probably the worst crest I've ever seen in my life. And so, I want to throw that out there because I think it's just, again, it's very important to remember that just because the Dynamo aren't doing well right now or didn't do well this year and have kind of been in this rut, this might be a way to help turn some of that around. And it's not just about what they do. Again, it's also, part of this is also, we have to remember that they're two separate, they're one club, they're one organization, but they're separate. The business operations and the soccer operations operate very differently. They're handled by different people. And so marketing can only do as much as marketing can do. And Alexi Lawless tweeted out about this actually this morning, saying, and this was actually probably in reference to the Chicago thing, but if they feel that a rebrand is going to help them, help shine their light of what they do to a different audience than what they've already done, and not necessarily detract from the existing audience. And I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter how bad the crest is. People are that if you like the Dynamo, you're still going to go to the Dynamo matches. You just are. But it's not going to, if it has a chance to catch additional people, if they can now create additional merchandise that people are going to wear regularly because that HD or that H is going to be recognizable across Houston, everybody's going to know what that's tied to, who that's tied to, what organization that represents. As a marketing group, as a marketing division within the Dynamo, they have done their job. They have created a brand that is marketable, and in a situation where they've created a brand that connects with people within the city. And that, to me, I think is the most important thing coming out of this rebrand, because they're targeting, and have already shown that they're targeting, local artists in the city. They're targeting musicians in the city. They're targeting, people that are influencers on social media and just locally, that are influencers, that are people that have influence over these different spheres of people that maybe have no idea who the Dynamo or who the Dash even are. Suddenly there's something recognizable to that. And we saw that a little bit last year with the murals that were painted in various places throughout downtown Edo. It caught attention from people that would never have considered the Dynamo as something to go watch or the Dash as something to go watch. But those murals made an impact by simply being there visually as a reminder. We're an organization, we're part of this city, and we are committed to this city.
No, and also think about I'm talking to George in the chat, and he's talking about the kits and how far they come along. And those black jerseys, man, those were game changers, secondary jerseys. And I think that's one of the reasons why the black is so prominent in these two logos, because they see that that regardless of what the deal was with the Dynamo, as far as whether there's a winning product under there, those jerseys, those secondary jerseys flew off the shelves. I remember the first black jersey that came out, when they had that painted black campaign. Those jerseys, man, you couldn't find those jerseys anywhere.
No, they were, well, and not just that, but everybody was wearing them everywhere.
Everyone was wearing
all over. They were all over.
So like I said, the marketing team can only do so much, and can you can have the best marketing team in the world, and they're gonna do their part, whatever their part is to try to push the club out there and into the public, whatever. And they've done, a really great job, as far as the murals around the city, the hashtag hold it down, the new hashtags, all that stuff. And just everything in general, basically, as far as a marketing team can go, they've done pretty much top notch, in my opinion, and I think in your opinion too, right? Sean. But like I said, at the end of the day, the biggest marketing that the team can do for themselves is having a winning product on the field, which is what they're lacking right now. But as soon as they get that, I mean, go hand in hand with the marketing team that they have, I think it's going to be a full running train, for them as far as marketing goes. Because as soon as they get a winning product on there, this marketing team is going to take it to a whole nother level.
So I got a couple more quotes I want to throw out, and then we'll
Okay.
kind of get back to the conversation you're talking about. But I think it does talk to this a little bit. The second or another quote from the same article from Mega Linehan, and the reason I'm using this article is because it was chock full of really good quotes, and The Athletic is a great thing that I support, so I definitely recommend you support them. The quote says, "After doing focus groups with supporters, there were some things locked in as an organization, or as the organization looked for in its fresh start." Then there's another quote that says, "It's not just a pretty little logo, which is going to get all the attention. It's going to be more about how we're going to build the organization and the club as a whole." So I take a little bit of umbrage with we did focus groups with supporters. I think there were some people brought in, but I don't know how widespread that was. I know a number of individuals that I'm connected with that have told me very specifically they were never consulted about this in any way, shape, or form. I know there were focus groups done. I just don't know how those individuals were selected or why. But for anybody who's curious, they were actually done. Again, I take umbrage with it only because I can tell you I was not involved, and I know other people that weren't involved with those focus groups. But I know at least one person that was involved, and they've done a few of them. They haven't done just one. But it's again, it's about the approach. It's about the change that they're trying to instill. It's more than just this logo or more than just the crest. It's more than just this drop. And I think another big kind of slice of that, or something that really points to that, and it's something I didn't think about bringing up until just now, but there was that Trey the Truth drop of his single that he basically was dropping that same day, on the 17th, that he dropped on holditdownfc.com. He did a live performance on, well, that wasn't live, it was recorded, but he put it up on holditdownfc.com. And to me, that's about the feeling of connectedness with the organization. It's the feeling of connectedness with the club. It's the feeling of, you're bringing in something completely different that's not been part of the club's identity. You're bringing in this known entity, this known celebrity that's a local celebrity that people know who he is. They know his music. They know they know what he's got, and they know what he brings. And it's a guy who clearly is okay with being somebody who's prominently out there, and just in general, not as an owner, just somebody who's connected to the organization just by being a local dude. And he dropped a single. The more that they can do that kind of stuff, the more that your fans and supporters will feel like they're getting something more out of this membership, or this thing that they're investing in. It's like it's an investment for us as fans as well. And this brings in the idea that it's more than just the on-field product, but there's also the off the field stuff like the music. But I also
You
want to
know,
say, go ahead.
no, speaking of that, I mean, it would have been a great idea from the marketing standpoint. I mean, where maybe they collected the top 15 longest serving season ticket holders and sent them a box of of the merch, the hold it down box or whatever that they sent to the media groups that we spoke about earlier, and maybe had them on a social media platform opening those things up, as original ticket holders or whatever, or whatever whatever title they might hold, or whatever, of
Mm-hmm.
that nature. It's one of those things, because, like, obviously, I know this hold it down slogan that we carried now for a year, obviously, is to pay homage to the Houston roots, and to be much more connected to the Houston lifestyle, and the way Houston is portrayed, I guess, nationwide, and which is cool. We're a laid back, slow paced kind of city, that is kind of a little big town, I guess, a little big city, small town mentality or whatever. But it's always good to have the local talent, as far as like the rappers who were involved, like Trey the Truth, and obviously, like, Mike Jones back in the day with the original song he did with them, and then obviously those concerts that were held on at Orange Avenue before on pregame. You had people like Paul Wall, Bun B up there, things of that nature. And obviously local artists is like Gonzo, doing the mural, the first mural with that Painted Black campaign that they had, and then the local artists that did this year's murals and things of
Yeah,
that nature. I
Roman,
think,
Alex
yeah,
Roman, Alex Roman Jr.
Alex, there
Yeah.
you go, there you go. I couldn't remember the name off.
Yeah, it's
There you
also
go.
in the article, by the way. Again, the Athletic, Meg Linehan's article. If you haven't read it yet and you have an Athletic subscription, first of all, what are you doing with your Athletic subscription if you're not going to read the articles? Number two, Meg Linehan's articles are always worth reading. And number three, it's the Athletic. Just go ahead and go check it out anyways. Go ahead. You can continue. I'm sorry.
No, yeah. So I mean, just the keeping the local aspect, I like it a lot, because obviously, Houston's so diverse, so we have a lot of talent in here, man. It's just whether or not we know it's out there, and whether or not we want to pay attention to it, because sometimes you get lost in mainstream, whatever, and to know that you have this kind of talent out here in your backyard, it's great to see, and the fact that the Dynamo, including those talented artists, as far as painters and graffiti artists and rappers and all that other, all the other portrayals. It's good. It's good, and I like the way they're going about things.
Yeah, I keep referencing this on and off pitch stuff, and I think it's important. And here's the thing, we talk about this rebrand and we talk about what it means, but it's important to know another thing too, that they worked with a local kind of creative agency known as Ninth Wonder here in Houston on the entire process. But the reason why this rebrand is important is there was a ton of both national and local coverage. I can tell you for a fact, Equalizer Soccer had an article about it. They actually interviewed Jacob Silverstein, one of the minority owners, like the Athletic. Obviously, Meg Linehan had her article. They dropped the leak on the Athletic as well, 2, 3, 4 weeks before it was out there. God, yeah, it's probably 2 weeks before, but it was still before. Then you had the MLS and NWSL websites and their apps were dropping stuff about the rebrand. Again, NWSL's commissioner was out there dropping it, showing merch. Local TV stations 11 and 13 had live coverage of the rebrand release and reveal, which I thought was cool. It was on their website. It wasn't. I doubt it was on their stations, but even just being on their website, that's still eyeballs that would normally not check that stuff out, that are watching that, that are seeing that. And then the other thing is all the merch that's been, I brought it up, but all the merch that's been sent out to these different, influencers, it pays dividends in the long run, because again, it becomes a recognizable brand. It brings authenticity. It brings value to the brand. It's not, the brand of the Dynamo, that logo did not speak to anybody who is an influencer in a positive way. It was a clip art logo. It really was. And I've heard rumors, and some people who are currently in chat will joke, will laugh about this, but I've heard rumors, and I think these are probably true, that logo was kind of just thrown together kind of last minute, after the initial 1836 thing was kind of, they had to put the kibosh on it real quick. They had to kind of come up with something different, and they did real fast. But speaking of merch options, there obviously the Adidas store has merch. If you're looking to go to the store, check out holditdownfc.com or HoustonDynamoFC.com and check out the store. They got the times on there, the hours of operation on there, so you can pick up merch for Christmas or the holidays, depending on what you celebrate. And offer up some presents to those who you feel deserve them. Sorry, Mark, you don't get anything from me. Just kidding. Then there's MLSstore.com, and then also, it's probably not well known, I didn't see it really tweeted out very much, but SamandDavy.com have a bunch of Houston Dynamo and Houston Dash merch up there as well, with the Houston Dynamo and Dash crests on the merch. They've got a couple of denim jackets. They've got some hoodies. They've got a tie-dye hoodie. It's not really tie-dyed. It's more like kind of a faded dye kind of hoodie type thing. It looks really cool though. Honestly sitting here going, I kind of want that, and that might be my Christmas present to myself. But the one thing of merch that frustrates me is this whole bandanas versus scarves thing. That they seem to be on this vendetta against scarves. They kind of pulled it. They talked about it pretty consistently in the reveal, as Mark sits there and shows off his scarf wall behind him. But Houston's not really the right city, climate for scarves. And in that respect, I will agree with him. Although I have worn my scarf in 102-degree weather to the game, so I don't know if I agree wholeheartedly. But at the same time, I definitely get what they're saying. Scarves definitely make it a whole lot hotter. So they're trying to push this idea of the bandanas, these little square pieces of fabric that you can kind of do a whole bunch of stuff with.
But
And go ahead.
think I think it's just another part of the marketing scheme, right? That obviously right now we're in COVID season, covert verse or whatever you want to call it. And obviously a lot of people use bandanas as their mask, and use that type of fabric to wear masks instead of to make their own masks instead of a face mask or whatever. So I mean, obviously, I think it ties into that as well. And then obviously, yeah, I understand where obviously having a scarf in 100 and something degree weather, while you're out there chanting and stomping on the stadium grounds and all that stuff is not ideal. Yeah, I've worn my scarf out there and come out with my neck soaking wet and all that good stuff. But I mean, that's one of the things where it's scarves are just something that kind of basically hand to hand with soccer culture or football culture. It's one of those things where stadiums around the world before their pregame is scarves up, and everybody's holding up their scarves and showing paying their homage to whatever team that they love during that time period. Because scarves are kind of like tale in history for clubs. When you see scarves, especially like vintage scarves from clubs, you see that you're like, oh wow, yeah, I remember that scarf from that time period, blah blah blah. Just like the Dynamo, when they won, I have my U.S. Open championship scarf. That scarf. When you see that scarf around, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, man, that was a great time. When the Dynamo won the U.S. Open Cup, and all those good memories those scars bring back to you. But understand where they're trying to go through with this, but I don't know if it's gonna catch on, man. I mean, I don't mind the bandana, obviously, but yeah, but the scars is just so engraved into me because as a soccer fan overall, I don't see ever leaving the scarf. Man.
I'm of the opinion that we're going to probably see, bandanas may become a thing, but not as strong as scarves. I don't think scarves are actually going anywhere, and the proof is in the fact that they've got merch up on the Adidas team store and the MLSstore.com that they have scarves out there that are Houston Dynamo FC scarves. So I don't think we're going to see the scarves going anywhere specifically, but I do think we will see bandanas for some people. They'll be much better. They'll be something that you just kind of throw in your pocket, or I do like their idea of you can kind of do the terrible towel thing with it. I think that is something to consider, but it'll just be interesting to see, I guess, how they really implement it in terms of incorporating it into the game day rituals or match day rituals, if you will, where they get the crowd to do something with that object, with that piece of fabric, to do something that's a something that really catches the attention when you're watching or seeing. So Sergio says, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's either gonna be like that old P. Pablo song, you wave your handicap and your whatever in the air, or like the terrible towels that Pittsburgh Steelers do.
Mm-hmm.
You wave your bandanas up in the air, whatever, all that stuff. I guess maybe that's what you're trying to head
Yeah,
towards with
I
those
mean,
bandanas.
my expectation or suspicion is that they try to have that be the thing on corner kicks, where everybody's just waving their towels in the air during, or not towels, but their bandanas in the air during those. But that in and of itself is not going to be distracting. It's going to be the noise. That's what you're really going for. But I think it does create a visual that scarves just in and of themselves don't create, because everybody wears them or they toss them onto the seats or whatever. And Sergio, references is, for me, it's one less thing to wear, referencing the scarf, so it's better, and I agree with that. But the other thing is, talking about all of this in terms of the rebrand, it's interesting, right? Because you think about how much time we've spent talking about the rebrand and how much time we've focused on that, not just today, but over the last how many ever weeks that it's been since they announced that or they teased a rebrand, I should say, and that it leaked on The Athletic and everything else. But it's just again, it's created a bit of a buzz in other ways that wasn't there before. And the more influencers that they can get behind it, the better, and the more it's going to build up, and the more it's going to have its own thing. We'll see. I think there's a big part of this that is still left to be seen, and that is, with all this talk about the organization doing things differently, and kind of a different approach. And I think anybody who is a season ticket holder this year received an email from Tab from the Dynamo that was a letter from Tab, basically And in that letter, he talked about how it wasn't good enough. They recognize that it wasn't good enough, and they understand what they need to do, which is get younger and get more athletic. They understand what they need to do is, he wants to play a much more attacking oriented style than even they played this year, and they want to be on the front foot, and they want to be high tempo, high pace, and all of these things. I don't argue with. I think they can be great, but again, it remains. Go ahead.
No, I said I don't know how true it is if it's only the support the season ticket holders, because I received that email as well. I also received one from
on their
James
mailing
Clarkson.
list. Probably anybody that's on their mailing list. Yeah, I received the James Clarkson one too. But it's he said Kenny says he thinks that was for anyone on the general Dynamo mailing list. Yeah, Kenny, thanks. But I just bring that up because again, that's going to be the proof in the pudding. Do they put any emphasis on actually making that happen? Do we see moves being made, whether it's finding players in MLS that fit that mold? I mean, there's young players in MLS that play for other teams that would make sense for the Dynamo on defense or in the center of midfield, whatever it may be. There's opportunities out there, and how much leverage? We've asked this question: how much leverage do they give Tab in the coming in this off season to make moves? I have no reason to believe that Matt Jordan is making any moves right now. He may be the one communicating things, but I don't think he's actually doing anything, in that regards. I think he's kind of just there.
I mean, I tend to agree with you. I mean, obviously, his contract ends at the end of this year, so I mean, he's still quote unquote in that GM duty, having to do. He's still the representative for the Dynamo if anything comes in for whatever reason. Now obviously, I don't think he's going to be the one making that decision. Obviously because he is the one, the incumbent going out. But yeah, but I mean, obviously, so, and for those who follow soccer, I mean, there's always going to be calls and rumors and all that good stuff, and obviously, I know last week we touched a little bit about the Tab interview with Glenn, or Tab taking the calls of callers on Glenn's show, and he talked about the emphasizing the youth and all that stuff and finding players within MLS, and obviously we have players coming in that that we be excited about. I mean, because obviously we don't know, like people like obviously Mateo Bahamich, who will be coming in, and and hopefully he can get into a little bit of Albert Lee's shoes that that obviously left to go to Portugal. Whether or not we bring back Lasser, I know I'm having a chat with Jorginho about it, talking about whether or not he should or he shouldn't come back next season, because there is an option to buy for him. In my opinion, I think he should come back. He should come back. I mean, obviously, depending on what kind of price they're going to get him for. Obviously, that's above all. But if it's something that they can afford, I think I think he is a player that has skill, and it can show that has shown that he can produce a little bit. Obviously, it's kind of one of those things. Like I said, this past season is a funky season. A lot of things didn't go our way. So, but the few times that he did show a lot of quality shows that he does have some quality in there. And obviously, whether or not they're willing to move forward with him, that'll be one thing to watch for. But yeah, man, I'm interested to see what kind of talent they're going to go find within the MLS, and see what kind of talent they're able to pick off from other teams, because it's kind of hard to trade within the league sometimes, because obviously, if unless it's something that just teams in dire need of a certain position player, and you have an abundance of that position player, and they're willing to trade with you, but that's usually for like more veteran kind of players. I don't know about so much youth players, as far as, or maybe even picking off their academy. I don't know how realistic that is.
It's not easy. Because they technically don't have academy players don't have contracts with the academy. There's nothing signed in that regard. It's kind of you get first shot type thing. Yeah, a couple of people have brought that up too about Matt Jordan. Going back to that real quick, Matt Jordan wasn't featured anywhere in the rebrand reveal, and to be fair, I don't know if he would have been anyways. Again, soccer operations very different than the business operations. I think that's fair. Yeah, Seattle have all the left backs in the league right now. It feels like, and some decent ones at that. I'm not gonna lie. But it's just kind of when it comes to Matt Jordan, I think he is. I feel like either he's going to he's just trying to, he's just finishing out the rest of this year, so to speak, to the end of his contract, or perhaps the Dynamo are looking to maybe do one extra year with him, but giving Tab basically the reins. And then the idea is maybe that Tab ultimately becomes that we go back to the Kinnear style where Tab is both coach and manager, or sorry, manager and general manager, making the actual moves themselves. And I can live with it if Tab can show that he has enough of on the scouting side and he has enough understanding of what he's looking for in players, and that he is good at doing the transactional side in terms of the trades and using the different mechanisms of MLS to bring in the players that he wants. And we'll find that out if he is the one pulling the strings this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too fond of him wearing both caps because I think it's a lot of responsibility, especially the fact that he has to, like he said so himself, he's not going to have a job here in 5 years if this team isn't producing, and his main focus should be to up the quality of this team and make sure that they're performing at their top peak level on the pitch, and for him to have to focus somewhere else, trying to scout a player that maybe or may not join the team or whatever the deal may be, that I think that his sole focus should be on the on-field issues, and the players. But being said, if he's up for the task and he can produce them under both caps, then more power to him, obviously. But I think if he does that, I think he would need a strong support system from the front office, and as far as people who can negotiate those prices and those of transfer fees and all that other stuff, that front offices do that need to be handled, so that we don't really hear too much about. So contracts is obviously, and that legal stuff that needs to be dealt with as far as bringing a player in from somewhere else.
Yeah,
I'm not.
And again, it's going to be interesting to see how, we're going to hear about moves being made at some point. Somebody's going to get signed in the winter window. I mean, it's going to happen because it's just got to happen. I don't know who it's going to be, or a trade that happens. And I think the biggest clue we will have to Matt Jordan's fate, if it's not already tweeted out or already, signified before that point, already done by that point, we will know if he is involved in any of the announcements, the reveals of players, those kinds of things. He's always been prominently, involved in the press conferences for those and in the videos for those. And he's always been the one that's been interviewed for those types of things with various quotes and things like that. So if he's not going to be the guy that's involved, I want to see who is involved from the Dynamo currently when it happens, because it's going to happen. You're going to have trades or whatever that are going to happen at some point. Speaking of trades, there is I noted that the player options drop to the league has been pushed back into December. We're not going to find out about any of that stuff until likely December anyways. We know a couple of players that were already re-upped in terms of Memo, and who was the other one that was re-upped?
Valentine.
Valentine, thank you. Yeah, and I think Valentine is the right guy to re-up. Obviously, you're using him a lot of your videos for branding purposes, for marketing purposes, and obviously he's the right guy for that sort of thing. He's community oriented. He was up for Humanitarian of the Year, tied to MLS. He's just an incredible player and an incredible person on top of that. So definitely someone that's definitely good. Well, okay, I guess we're not going to end anytime soon. So the question was brought up: any thoughts on one or two players available in MLS that could fit the team? That is really, really tough, because technically in MLS, when it comes to it, anybody is technically available. We've seen players. Yeah, well, I mean, because in MLS, we've seen DPs traded. We've seen other players traded at every level.
I'll tell you one thing, as far as what player I think might fit the scheme, but I mean, like I said, within MLS players are available anytime, basically because of that single entity thing. I mean, like you see a player like last season where Darlington Nagbe was traded from Atlanta United to Columbus Crew, and Nagbe is, quite frankly, maybe the best 6 in the league right now. Best number 6 in the league right now. And for a player like that to be traded within the league like that, obviously if you offer enough GAM or TAM, whatever, the deal can be done within the league. So, but yeah, it's a really good question, really great question. And as far as a player out there, I think, I mean, man, it's hard because, like, obviously, I think our biggest need is, we discussed this last week again. Our biggest needs are center backs, and not too many teams are willing to give up quality center backs, especially to rival teams, And I think a lot of our rival teams, obviously, I'm talking about the Western Conference, have center backs in their league and their teams, and hard to give up, quality players to rivals. So I don't know. I mean, I can't think of a player off the top of my head, but obviously the first thing I'm looking for are center backs. If I can find one that's available.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If we had the available allocation money, my first choice would be Walker Zimmerman for obvious reasons. Best
Oh,
MLS, center back by far.
but see, that's what I'm saying. Like, you see how LAFC traded him to Nashville, a team that's in a different conference,
Yeah.
because it's not a main rival. The same thing with the Darlington Abbey. Atlanta United traded him to Columbus. They're not in the same conference.
Yep.
So I mean, it's one of those things where it's if you do have a surplus to quality, how they say it, whatever, um, then the first thing as a general manager, if I'm putting on my GM shoes, I'm not looking to trade or send a player to a direct rival. Obviously, in this case, being a team in the same conference as us, because obviously you're seeing that team 2 to 3 times a year, and in the playoffs, if you make the playoffs along with that team, so you're not wanting to strengthen that rival, that direct rival. So that's why trades like that happen. Because yeah, obviously I would love to have Walker Zimmerman, especially for whatever. I think Nashville only gave up like 1.2 million in GAM or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I seen us throw like that money away, like, like it was nothing, if you were to tell me the one transaction that we're gonna do, they're gonna put all their GAM money and get Walker Zimmerman, I would have done that 10 times out of 10 anytime.
Well, and I think when it comes to and Zimmerman was willing to go, which was another important thing there for
That's
Nashville.
true.
But I think it's important to remember too that Tab also knows specific players. This is a coach that comes in with a very intimate knowledge of specific players that he's coached in his time as U.S. national team youth coach or U.S. youth national team coach. And in that system. And so, and same thing with Omen Namisi. He's, as an assistant coach, it's another coach that has experience with some of these players. And so I think we see Tab going after a couple players that I say a couple, probably like 3 or 4 players this offseason that he's coached previously that he knows and is comfortable with, because these players that these are going to be players that he knows can slot into the positions that he wants to put them into and be those types of leaders. I would not be surprised if we see him try to go after, players that he's coached before. I wish I had a list in front of me. I don't. I wasn't prepared for the question. We were planning to end at 8, and you guys have made us keep going, which I love. But at the same time, I don't have that list, so I really couldn't tell you.
Oh,
And then,
oh,
we have a lot of allocation money that's been freed up over the last year. Specifically, Kyoto leaving, that was a lot of allocation money we were spending to keep him on a cheap contract. Same thing with Elise. That was a lot of allocation money being used there. We still have Morrow and still have Kiki that will have to buy their contracts down. Same thing with Quintero. But I wouldn't be surprised to see, to see Tab trying to make some moves, and we may see some players leave that we don't expect to see leave. But we got to just have trust in Tab right now to know that he knows what he wants to build, know how he wants to build it, and to see that he's got the tools to do it. And again, there's a lot of mechanisms in MLS to make things happen. It's just a matter of whether he can figure out how to leverage all of them to do what he actually wants to do.
yeah, and obviously it depends a lot on what like other clubs do in their transfer markets, because obviously, like, when you see clubs like our big spinning clubs in this league, obviously like Atlanta United, LAFC, things of that nature. So like if LAFC brought in a big signing and they had a player that was a quality in that same position, but obviously they don't want to have too much money in that same position, then that player can be made available depending on what kind of money they're able to fetch. But another thing that that we're speaking of on the chat is obviously if another league, a team from another league is giving enough transfer money for said player, obviously the number one option is to transfer the player out of the league, because you're not impacting yourself, or you're not strengthening the club in your own league. So that's always going to be the number one option if the money is right as far as transfers go. That's why I'm saying like it's kind of hard to do trades within the league. Like I said, like when they picked up Christian Ramirez in the trade with LAFC, that's why I think a lot of us were really excited, because we really didn't see that coming, at that time, because we all know Christian Ramirez's story. He's a borderline, U.S. national team player. He had his up and downs and all that stuff, but he was always a good, decent goal scorer at whatever team he was at. And for him to become available, was just kind of like, wow. And obviously we haven't really got the goals that we've been looking for from him, but still at that moment we were like, it was a lot of excitement in the air because of the fact that that we were able to get him for, and I think it was only like what, 250,000 in GAM or whatever.
Yeah, roughly. It was pretty cheap. Yeah.
And it can happen, but like I said, it has to be one of those things where I don't know what move LAFC made to kind of push him out, and where he was made available for that amount or whatever. And clubs like that, obviously they're always going to have an abundance of talent, because they're always willing to better themselves, even though they're on top of the tables. So
a name that I'm going to throw out there that's a Galaxy player is Nick Dupuy. I think he's a player that might be someone that Tab may go after. A kid that came up through the Galaxy Academy, and has made his way onto the Galaxy first team occasionally. I think he's a player that Tab would love to have on his roster. So he's a player maybe to keep an eye on from them. And I know the Galaxy are looking to make some changes. So, now is the right time to strike on that one, right? Iron's hot, so to speak, with them changing coaches this offseason, again, for the second time in 2 years, which I love, by the way. Thank you, LA Galaxy, for sucking this year. It's great. But bring in Efrain Alvarez. Trust me, if the Dynamo could afford to do that some way, somehow it would happen. That kid is he's just insanely talented.
But you think about a player like that, right? We're talking a couple of years prior, before Alvarez, we talking about a player like Jonathan Gonzalez, who ended up going to Monterrey with Rayados, right? And then there was talk about him joining Atlanta United. It's deals like that where obviously when you bring in a player of that caliber, pushes somebody out, and if that player that is being pushed out is of better quality than what you have currently, then you can go strike while the iron's hot, and maybe get him on cheap, and that's what Dynamo have been trying to do, I guess, with some of these trades that they've done within the MLS, But like I said, not too many of those things happen, man. So I mean, it'll be hard. I'm interested to see what Tab's going to do this offseason. It's going to be an interesting offseason. I'll give him that.
And I can tell you there's a ton of really talented young players that are connected to MLS clubs that could get opportunities under Tab that maybe they aren't getting with their existing club. Again, time will tell. And much like Marcus said, and I've said, we've got to kind of wait this offseason out. And but I would not be surprised if we start seeing some moves. Basically January. We talked last week about how the answer is I don't know, Nestor. If we're ending anytime soon, I kind of like this discussion. Not gonna lie. Go grab food. We'll just hang on and keep going. Go grab food and eat. You're fine. Or go make food. I guess it's fine. We'll just talk to ourselves while we wait. Yeah, there's a lot of that's a good point too. But before we get to Liga MX youth, because there's plenty of talented players in that crew as well, or that group as well. There's a lot of young players within MLS currently that are players that could be picked off because picked and pulled because they're players that they're on teams that already have solid center backs, or have solid outside backs, or have solid D mids, or have solid center mids, or even solid wingers. Again, I don't know what Tab's intent is for looking at specific players, but I can tell you that he is looking hard right now. But again, I don't expect us to actually make any moves until we can't make moves until the December window, which is a half day window for trades and for trades within the league, and that's it. That opens, I think, December 13th. So we're less than a month away from that. Um, and then of course there's the expansion draft, so we'll know who our protected players and unprotected players are. But I'm going to be honest, I don't expect any of our players to be taken. Maybe Darwin Seren if he's left unprotected. Though I can't see the team right now leaving him unprotected. And Mark,
Maybe
that's a
I
really
think
good point about League MX players.
maybe Christian gets left unprotected, and he'd be a nice 9, depending on what the situation is. Because I mean, you can only save your 11 and then like your homegrowns. I think it is. Because I mean, I know we haven't been part of the expansion draft for the last actually 2 years now, because they didn't pick anybody from the year prior
Yeah,
before we got picked off. So I don't quite remember the rules, but I know it's you protect the 11 and then your homegrown and something else. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe your
your
DPs or
DPs
something.
aren't yeah your DPs are not automatic anymore. So it's really just your homegrowns. Those are the only ones that get automatically protected, and then you have to protect only 11 from that from the ones that aren't homegrowns. So that
So
that is some people have asked, well, why focus on homegrowns? Because we know there's still more expansion to come. We know that there's more expansion teams targeted already with specific years that they're coming into play. If you bring in a bunch of talented players that aren't homegrown players, you can only protect 11. One of them is going to leave, and you just lost a player for you get nothing in return. So at
yeah,
least in that regard, this does actually make some sense. Go ahead.
so in that regard, is of course, players like Palomino, Nico Limon, those you don't have to protect them because they're already protected because they're quote unquote homegrown players. Sam Junqua is another one of those examples. So right off the bat, you have 3 players there that you don't have to worry about protecting, and those players are players that are being touted for the future of the squad, as Tab has said so himself, and and during the calls with the fans last week on Glenn's show. So
Yeah,
that's 3 right off
correction.
the bat.
Yeah, correction. Junqua is not a homegrown. He was a draft pick, and he went to
Oh yeah,
UCLA.
yeah,
No, he's a
but
Calbear.
see, but something about the drafted players too, right? I mean,
No,
man, I'm gonna have to look this up.
no, I'm telling you right now, it's just strictly just homegrowns that get automatically protected. Everybody else is technically available. You get to protect 11 players. A lot of times teams will protect their draft picks, but they're not protected if they're signed to an MLS contract. They're available. Um, yeah, I mean that's the other thing too. We got the super draft. Although there's rumors that may not actually take place, so there's no telling when that's it, when and if and when that's actually going to happen. That's another way to acquire some talent, and I can guarantee you, Tab knows some players that have Tab definitely has connections with college coaches. So he's definitely going to know some players to target for positions or specific roles that he wants. You also brought up the Palomino and Nico Lemoine. There's also Danny Rios. There's also Ivan Castilla. And there was another one that was just signed for 2021 as well about a month ago, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. But he's another one to keep a lookout for as well. And then there's Ian Hoffman down in RGV. There's Eric McHugh down in RGV. Um, Robin, I think that's true. Robin says surely Tab has more connections to find players than any coach we've had. I think that's absolutely 100% right. Tab, I bet that Dominic Kinnear has as many connections as Tab has, at least within MLS and even internationally to some degree. But I do think that Tab's reach in terms of general scouting can be a lot farther and a lot wider because he knows at a lot of different levels. Whereas I think Dom tended to strictly be that kind of veteran senior team level for a lot of his contacts. But we talked. Oh, go ahead.
So I looked up this the expansion draft rules or whatever.
Hmm.
So there it is kind of a little bit tricky here. So obviously the homegrown players are automatically protected.
Hmm.
From drafted players, uh, generation Adidas players. are automatically protected as well if they
Yeah, and
haven't
there's
granted.
only like 4 or 5 of those across all of MLS each season, so
Yes.
it's not
But those Generation Adidas players go as far back as 5 drafts. So,
yes,
for example,
correct.
so right now we'll be going to the 2021 draft. So from 2016 up to now, those
We
Generation
don't
Adidas
have
players
any.
are automatic.
Yeah, we don't
And
have any.
so yeah,
I wish we did, trust me. The
that'd
reason
be nice.
why the reason why Generation Adidas players tend to be picks that are taken higher in drafts specifically is because they are
Contracts anyway.
underclassmen that have outperformed their peers basically, and
I
they
don't
are
think
signed to. Say that again.
I don't think
No,
their
it does not.
contract.
It does not hit the salary cap, but they're also signed to. They're basically signed to like 5-year contracts up front with MLS. Again, MLS is a single entity, so it's they sign with MLS. They sign that contract, that Generation Adidas contract with MLS as underclassmen, with the expectation that MLS is going to keep them within the league for at least 5 seasons, and then they can be sold on for profit. So another question that came in, actually, I'm going to read Kenny real quick. He says, I think relative to what MLS was in the 2000s, Dom was as connected as Tab is now. I agree. That's what I was referencing, Kenny. Thanks. That's a good way to put it. Voices, Twitch TV says, will Boniak stay this 2021 season? That is a really good question. I think maybe you keep him around for the 2021 season, but it's going to be on a reduced contract, probably a player coach type contract. And the reason I say that is that's a veteran player in terms of at least locker room leadership that you need. Someone who can help adjust, help the your younger players adjust, especially those that come from either Honduras or Central America. He can help their adjustment coming in, and you've got players like possibly Ariel Lassiter that might come back that could use additional adjustment. You've got Mateo Bahamic coming in from South America for the season as well, and you have other connections there as well that Boney. There's definitely a reason to re-sign Boney. Just don't. You're not planning to re-sign him as a starter. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And in my opinion, I don't know if he comes back as a player. Um, Man, the thing is, obviously he's going to be going into his age 37 season now. So I mean, it's pretty tough, especially for a midfielder to play at that age. And obviously we've seen the regression of Boney, with his speed and his pace. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. And it's just father time catching up with him. But I don't really know because I think Tab was really adamant, especially talking about moving past, minors and the Boniacs, and those and that time period of Dynamo players, and I'm not against it, obviously, but I think Boney does deserve to hang up his boots when he wants to, I guess, per se. Depending if he's willing to come in on another year on a really cheap contract, maybe a veterans minimum or whatever. But he's also going to have the option to go back to Olympia and Honduras and play out there if he wants to. Obviously because he's a club legend over there as well as he is here. So I'm sure he'll have some options and he'll do whatever's best for his family. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna say I'm maybe like 30-70 as far as Boney come back to the Dynamo as a player next season.
Yeah, he's kind of like, I think Minor is one of those players that's that he's not coming back. I just don't think he's coming back as athletically sound as he is, a player who's capable of playing more seasons. I just think that he's a player that you just really need to start moving away from because he's not your long-term plan. And Tab said he wants to get younger, he wants to get more athletic. You don't do that by keeping the same starter that's 38 years old.
Yeah, I
Look,
mean,
I'm
and
38 years old. I can say this, okay?
yeah, and obviously, I mean, I agree with Jorginho saying send him off with the fans. He deserves it. Yeah, obviously he does. I mean, he's been a model citizen with the Dynamo. He's been great with the community. He's been great as a player for us. And all the good stuff. Extreme, constant professional, and everybody loves Boney. I mean, he's a presidente for a reason. So he does deserve that send off if he wants it. But like I said, it's one of those things where there has to be a little bit of a compromise from his standpoint as well. If he does want it, I'm sure the Dynamo are willing to give it to him, but it's going to have to come at a reduced salary for that season because obviously Dynamo not being a big spending club need all the money available to them as much as possible to spend in other areas and to do whatever they can with that money that's available for them. So, but no,
And
nah, man, I
and
mean,
and I want to piggyback on that because you mentioned the money. That's important because going younger, and I've mentioned this before, but going younger, you spend less money on younger players, traditionally speaking, for the same talent level because they're not proven traditionally or usually. So if you're spending less money on a non-proven player and you're bringing them in because they have that raw potential or that talent level, then you're spending less on them, which means you have more money to spend elsewhere. So you have more money to spend on a higher price DP or a number 10 because God knows we need a new number 10 right now. So it's just going to be very. And Robin says exactly what I just said. We definitely need to move away from signing old folks. We need a younger team. Just a few veterans mixed in, and I don't even know if the veterans necessarily have to be starters. Seren could be a starter, I think, but go ahead.
but I think we've already kind of gone to that situation. I mean, obviously, like I said, we have some old heads. We're not gonna doubt that. But I mean, but as far as like our with Memo, with Marcelo, with Mauro, with Lassiter, with Bahamic, those players are 19, 20, 21, 22 to 23-year-olds, so they're all in that age range where they're all able to play with each other, and they're still young players. Model's 24, 25, I think. I think Memo is too, but still they're about to jump into their prime, if not in their prime already of their careers. And that's where you want to have those players, and you want to sprinkle in a few more younger players like we have with Marcelo and Nico Limon and Sam Junqua, and things of that nature. But as far as going above having 35-year-old plus players, I don't think that's the way anymore. There's no need for that anymore. I don't think, unless you're going to get that special player that can kind of the younger players can piggyback off, for example, like with the Vicente Sanchez here we had. But he's a special type of character that you need. Like I said, he's that fiery leader that's willing to go grab a young player by the back of his neck and tell him what he did wrong on the pitch, or tell him what he needs to do on the pitch while he's on the pitch. But aside from that, I said you kind of cut it off right there, maybe by having a veteran player like a Darwin Saran who did play good this year, and he kind of earned his contract for next season if Tab is willing to go that direction with him.
Well, and you have, something to keep in mind. You have Ian Hoffman, who plays defensive mid/center mid. It's another player you can bring up from RGV. He also plays right back for RGV, but that's a player that you can slot in at either of those two positions. So that's a center mid that you're pushing out. Whomever it is from the starters, you're pushing them out. And trust me, Ian needs the minutes. He's really good. Jurgen Damm was brought up as a player. I'm sitting here going, you do realize we had to sell the rights, as Sergio brought up. We had to sell the rights to Jurgen Damm to Atlanta so that they could sign him to begin with. And frankly, Damm is just a really fast player. His ability to cross is terrible. Not very good at all. He's basically Elise, but like an Elise light. And frankly, I've had enough of Elise that I'm ready to move on from the Elise factor. And go ahead.
And it's one of those things like Jurgen Damm is obviously quote unquote, I don't want to say a big name because he really isn't in the world of soccer. It's just because he played for one of the biggest teams in Mexico in Tigres, and obviously he's been a borderline Mexican national team player. I mean, but aside from that, like I said, his skills are not really to the par where you're like, he's going to be the face of the franchise, and he's not that guy. And unfortunately for us, and when we do spend on DP money, the next person, whoever we get to spend DP money on, needs to be a hit, man. Because I mean, we've had too many misses, and
we've had a lot of misses. You're not wrong about that, man.
Yeah, and Jurgen Damm isn't the answer. No, even if he was brought in for the season, he wasn't going to do anything much different than what Darwin did. I mean, I think Darwin was a better player this season than he was, this past season. And I think Darwin's a better overall player than Jurgen Damm, a more complete player. But But that's neither here nor there. And obviously, I know we have Tigres fans and all that stuff, and Mexican national team fans, and they're probably gonna, jump on me, be like, "Oh, it's blasphemy," blah 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 blah. This and that. Just Dynamo don't want to spend, on a Mexican player. No, it's not that, man. It's just I don't care if the player's Mexican or not. It's just I want the player to be good and be worth the money that we're paying them. And especially if it's
Oh
gonna
yeah, for
be
sure.
DP money. So
Well, and
no,
and there's plenty of Liga MX young players out there right now that frankly I would be content with picking up. But he's not one of them. He's just not. He and again, player from your Liga MX. I'm not saying a current Liga MX player, but I just don't think he's a guy that you target. I just don't feel like he
yeah.
fits what the Dynamo under Tab specifically want to do.
And like I mentioned prior in the chat, I mean, obviously, like once a Liga MX team gets aware of somebody sniffing around their youth academy, trust me, those Mexican teams, they sign their youth right off the bat, and they're on first team contracts. That's why you see players who watch Liga M. For those who watch Liga MX, you see a player with their jersey, triple digit number jersey on the back, and they're playing first team football because being signed, as soon as they get a whiff of somebody who wants to sign their youth players, they sign them to first team contract. That way they can sell them for a nice little fee, because they're a young player, they're up and coming, and obviously if you're looking into them, they have some traits that you're looking for, or they have some kind of special skill that you like that you're willing to spend on. And if you get them as a youth, they're not able to collect as much money as they would be if they're a first team player. So that's one of the things. That's one of the things that kind of hold the soccer aspect here in America behind, because we're not allowed to sign 16-year-old, 15-year-olds, to 16-year-olds to like contracts like that because of work labor laws or whatever, and all that
Yep.
stuff, because
Yep.
we're not able to sell them off to other countries. That's why a player like Gio Reyna, who was in New York CFC's academy, was able to go to Borussia Dortmund for free. Only thing Borussia Dortmund had to pay for that was just like an administration fee. Like here's like $70,000 for having him for this many years. For I guess building up his skill set or whatever. But $70,000 for a player who's going to be possibly the best American players, maybe even surpass Pulisic here pretty soon. Who know, man? That's nothing. That's nothing. That's
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. And George also brings up a good point related to Liga MX players as well as Mexico Liga MX in general. Those teams tend to overprice and overvalue their players when they sell them. I mean, tremendously so. We saw it with Elise. The amount that we paid for Elise and what we got out of him felt relatively close and comparable, but we didn't get that same amount when we sold him on. We got less than we paid for. And go ahead.
There's only one aspect I saw a Liga MX team sell a high quality player at a low price, but the only reason why they did it is because they got benefits elsewhere. So when Chicharito got sold from Chivas to Manchester United, they only sold him for $6 million transfer fee, right? And obviously he ended up being a bargain because he was like one of the super subs that was scoring goals for them during that time period when he was Man U. But in return, because Man U is such a big name, they went back to Chivas Guadalajara and did a testimonial match for Chicharito, which they sold tickets in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars, and thousands of dollars, and they were able to make that money back and match their revenue along with the $6 million that they got, and then other things as well. I think they got a percentage of jerseys, something, whatever other kind of way they could get money. But yeah, no, Liga MX team. If you're looking at their players, if that value is not front loaded as far as transfer fee, they're gonna find another way to get that money somewhere.
Oh yeah, they're backloading it somehow, some way. No, you're 100% right, and that's the other advantage too of coordinating and working with MLS teams is that that they're not going to necessarily overvalue their players tremendously. There's going to be some overvaluing to a little bit of an extent, but not nearly to the same that we see with Liga MX and even potentially South American or European teams. I do hope that maybe Tab is also shifting gears just not away from South America, but also to being more cognizant of what is out there in Europe. And because there are some good European young players out there as well that could be, really useful on a Dynamo team. But you have to start with the players that are already available, and those are going to be your Nico Lemoynes, your Marcelo Palominos. Where do they fit in? Where do they slot in? Are they ready to start? Or are they as good as Tab indicated in that radio interview? Your center back Eric McHugh, is he ready to play? Is he ready to be a center back? Et cetera. So, yeah, AJ, love the 1 hour show. Yeah, AJ, trust me, I know I'm actually starving right now. But this chat is lit, and I'm enjoying the chat about player opportunities and possible moves and things like that. And but I'm going to say this: we're going to go to 8:45, and then I'm going to cut it off, and we will pick this conversation up again next week, because I can guarantee you we're not going to have much to talk about next week. That is, I'm assuming you're going to be in town, even though it's Thanksgiving.
Yeah. We'll see, man. Like I said, it'll be a busy week next week, but speaking of as far as the chat we're going, obviously the only thing we were thinking about talking about was the rebrand and stuff like that. But obviously,
it's the only thing we had planned. Trust me.
Yeah. But this is great though, because the fact of the matter is, we all see the stuff with the rebrand, right, on social media. But for those who read the comments, we also see the frustrated fans that are, hey, that's great, you want to change the logo and stuff like that, but what about the on the pitch product? This and that, and it has to do a lot with the product on the pitch, which, trust me, look, me and Sean, we don't try to be too far right or too far left on the situation. We're not trying to be overly positive, but we're not trying to be overly negative as well, right? We're trying to be somewhere in between and be on common grounds with certain things, And obviously, we have to look at it from a different perspective, as far as like, as a fan, as a supporter, I want the best team possible running on the pitch at BBVA. I want a winning team that's going for silverware year in and year out. Reality is, right now, that's not what we have. So but bitching about it and me whining and moaning and this and that, well, it's not gonna fix anything, realistically. Yeah, obviously, supporters, you can do a lot of things to voice your opinion. Social media is great for that. You see a lot of things like in foreign leagues where they have signs, banners and things of that nature. Unfortunately, we weren't able to voice that because we didn't really have fans in stadiums this season. But there's different ways and different mechanisms to voice your opinion on certain things, especially if situations that you don't like. But whether or not we decide to dwell in that situation for too long, where we're just like, man, we're just beating a dead horse. It's one thing that I refuse to do, because I don't like to dwell on negativity too long. Yeah. Do I like what's happened the last 6-7 years with this franchise? Oh no, nobody. I don't think anybody on this chat, Sean, whoever else, any Dynamo supporter, is not happy with what's going on the last 7 years, right? And but being negative and just negative and negative and negative and negative towards there's nothing coming out of it, man. You just gotta hope for the best. We all follow different soccer clubs around the world, and not all of us follow the Barcelonas and the big clubs. I follow smaller clubs as well, and I have certain feelings towards.
Yeah, we see that Arsenal scarf behind you. We know you follow the smaller clubs.
And unfortunately, there's only one champion every year. At the end of the year, for whatever league, or for whatever cup competition, or for whatever tournament that's out there. There's only going to be one champion. And it was great the first couple of years when the Dynamo were here and there were constant winners and winning championships and going to finals and lifting up cups and going to international competitions and all that thing and all these great things. And then obviously when we had the brief extent when we won the U.S. Open Cup and then went to the playoffs and returned to CCL play, that was a great time. We want that more constantly. Yes, I agree. But I don't know. I don't agree on just. Oh, get rid of the owner. Get this. At the end of the day, the owner, if he wants to stay there, he's gonna stay there. That's period. There's nothing to it. If the owner doesn't want to sell, he's not gonna sell.
I'll say this in kind of closing, and this will be a good closure point and something for people to kind of think about for the next week or 2 weeks or however long it may be. if Brenner stays, my expectation as a fan, with everything that's been said, is that Brenner's going to try to sell in 2021. He's going to try to sell this year, and if he doesn't, and I don't see at least an attempt to try to sell. Now that can be just rumors that he's had inquiries with various people or whatever. If I don't see that he's tried to sell, I guarantee you, and I've said this in other places, but I guarantee you right now, I promise you right now, that I will rail on him publicly on Twitter, and make it very clear my opinions on Gabriel Brenner. I believe he will, so I believe I'm not going to have to own up and live up to that. But if he doesn't, trust me, I will be one of the first ones in line ripping him a new one. And because I'm ready for a new owner, I really am, and I know that. No, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Sean, but like I said, look, I understand. Trust me. Look, we're
all there.
Completely agree.
We are all there.
But like I said, at the end of the day, if Brenner can be trying to sell this thing on the cheap, right? But at the end of the day, if there's not a buyer out there for it, there's not a buyer out there for it, and he's still the owner of the team. So what I was trying to get pushed across and get through is like, owner situation, that's going to be the owner situation. If it changes, great. If it doesn't, then that's what we live with. Unless you're going to hop off the ship and go root for another team. But that's you. I'm not that type of fan. I mean, if you're gonna stand by them during the glory years, you got to stand by them during the shit years. And unfortunately, this is the shit time that we're living in with the Dynamo. But it's what it is. So that's all I have to say on that perspective.
Well,
yeah, I'm.
You broke up there. Do you want to say it?
No. Yeah, I mean, that's just my perspective on that situation. But obviously, I'm on the same boat as you and majority of Dynamo fans. Yeah, I would hope for Brenner to sell to somebody who's going to truly invest in the club and provide us a better investment on the pitch. But until that actually happens,
yep,
this is what we're dealt with. So I mean, we got to make the best of it.
Absolutely, and to close, to really truly close. It is important that Brenner does sell to the right entity. It can't be someone who wants to just come in and move the team, or it can't be somebody that just wants to come in and completely change the way that we're going about things. It's got to be somebody that is willing to come in and accept the brand for what it is, accept the team for what it is, but like you said, be willing to invest, be willing to grow that. And I think there exists investors out there that are willing to do that. It's just we've got to let it go through the process. It's not an overnight process. It does take time. I wouldn't even be surprised if he has 1 or 2 or 3 or even 4 options available to him right now. But time will tell. And again, we won't know that until near the end of 2021 or sooner if we find out about it before then. But until then, just hang tight, hold on, and here's to hoping that Tabs changes, that he's expressed that he wants to do. We will talk about that next week, because hopefully by then we'll know if Harden is leaving the Rockets or not. But I think kind of a short answer to that, just so I don't have to tease you completely, is it doesn't affect the Dynamo in any way, shape, or form. But we will discuss that next week, along with a lot of other things tied to that same stuff. We'll talk more player stuff, and make sure you join us every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time. Next week, hopefully, like I said, we'll try, but we always tweet it out. You can follow us on Twitter at GenOrangeRadio, and we will tweet it out ahead of time if we're going to, at least the day of, if we're going to have a show or not. It's just a matter of the 3 of us coordinating, myself, Nestor, and Mark. But guys, thanks for joining. If you haven't hit that like button or that follow button, do that now, please, and share us out. Share us out as much as you can. We're trying to grow this as much as we can. Guys, ahead of time, happy holidays. We're basically there, so I might as well get it in now. But thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it. Y'all have a good week.
We're going to find the promised land.